Are you looking for hot takes and guests yelling over top of each other? Well, you came to the wrong place. This is the final word, where we talk about sports like they used to. All opinions are welcome, but that doesn't mean you are right. Hosted by Greg Rector. Welcome in.
Good evening, everybody. This is the final word here, and I'm Greg Rector, your host of the final word. And tonight, of course, we're going to be discussing the Dallas Cowboys and their lovely season and all that fun sort of stuff. I'm going to be joined here in a couple of minutes by Eric Sharp, and we're going to be discussing all those issues involving the Cowboys. First and foremost, for those people who don't like the Cowboys, you're more than welcome to be here. If you do enjoy the Cowboys, and you're one of those younger fans who have never seen the Super Bowl being raised, you have my sympathies. I'm old. I remember their first loss in the Super Bowl in Super Bowl V to Jim O'Brien. Then I remember beating the Dolphins, who went on to be the undefeated team the next season. So I'm an old guy, and it was really a great run for the first 25 years of being a Cowboys fan. However, the last 30 seasons, not so much. It really comes down to those 5 Super Bowl trophies. They've been around for a long time now, and it really comes down to these two gentlemen. That's right, Jerry and his idiot son, Steven. Yes, you heard me right, his idiot son. Boy, those two guys really drive me bananas. They really do. They don't understand how to do business. They really just don't understand. Jerry tells this story a lot of the time that he doesn't like picking up the telephone because that means you're in the losing end of a trade. Are you kidding me? You know, that might have been the case back in the good old days before the salary cap and all this other fun sort of stuff came into play. But again, the reason why older Dallas Cowboys fans get so upset is Jerry's a bully. There's just no other way to get around this. And there is Mr. Eric Sharp. Eric. So I have my first banner is up, and Jerry is a bully.
Yep.
And you can see on the screen here the tortured Cowboys fan. Eric, tell everybody how long you've been a Cowboys fan for.
Since 77. Okay.
Yeah.
And I never thought that I would be spending my later years on social media doing zany things to make sure people knew that while I'm a diehard Cowboys fan, I only let GM Jerry rent a little bit of space in the back of my head, like the outhouse. Okay. And as I was telling Amy Trask, former CEO of Oakland Raiders, like mid last week via tweet, or X, excuse me, Elon X, that I wished that I was able to go back in time, or that Al Davis would have turned down GM Jerry's first desire to meet with him or hop on a call with him, because it seemed like the one thing that Jerry came away from that meeting with was the least important thing. The make sure that they know you're the most important person in the room before making sure you know to just win, baby, right? He missed that lesson. And I guess it was easy for him to do because he had Jimmy Johnson in his back pocket, so to speak, doing all the work, making sure that the results were there. But Greg, as you know, at some point very early, he started to flip the script and say, well, we've got to protect the brand. You don't have to protect the brand. The best part about pro sports is if you've got a winning team, the team drives the attention. From just like a quality offensive line, a quality defensive line drives everything else on the field in football, the quality of the product, the team itself. If you're good, everyone wants to be in your palace. If you're not so good, people start to stray. You're not supposed to say, well, we'll just expand our brand to make sure those people kind of linger in the lobby, so that when we become good again, they're all back. And it's just amazing that it's like looking at GM Jerry is like looking at that character Skinner from Ratatouille. You had Gusteau, the famous chef, who said anyone can cook, and he had these wonderful famous recipes. And then when he died, Skinner took over, and you see him trying to sell frozen meal versions of all his recipes, just anything and everywhere. That's GM Jerry. And he has literally no reason to do it other than greed, absolute pure greed. And doesn't even need to do that. He just needs to allow the team to be the star, not him, not the coach, the result on the field. And you and I and millions of other Cowboys fans around the world spend time scratching our heads so much that, I know I'm going bald. You probably have less than I do, but trying to get him.
I've been there for quite a while.
Yeah. You can't see it, but it's back there.
Yeah.
And it's just, and then every time you see them on air, which is their goal, be seen, good or bad, be seen. They know for sure that half the time what they say is antagonistic, whether on purpose or not. Whatever keeps driving the machine. And you've got I can't tell which one is worse to have to deal with. Even if you close your eyes, you hear their voice. You've got Steven. Occasionally he gets caught by the otherwise friendly media. They ask him one slightly concerning question, and he looks like he's not only the deer in the headlights, he's been hit by a pileup. Just like last week when they asked him again about how they might maneuver contracts this offseason to try to create space. And, fans just don't understand. You see, they just don't understand this problem. It's like, oh, we don't understand that the Rams, who everyone points to in the past 5 years, they managed to squeeze every possible free agent onto their team, knowing full well that if they all stay healthy, these huge contracts they sign them to, it doesn't matter. You just go with the flow. If they get injured, that's the risk. And then it all piles up. But they won their Super Bowl. They had a down year. Everyone thought they were over with. They switched out their parts. They did their Legoland thing. They managed to sidestep enough of that built up dead money, and they're back. Perfect? No. It's the idea of build back up again. There's no reason not to, and especially when you got a team like the Cowboys. We all know basically they're going on 3 whole decades since they last made it to the Super Bowl and won, right? And, you see fans of other teams who love to sit there and say, hey, we've been to a Super Bowl. We might even won one. What have you guys done? And you got so many of our fans who they just can't help themselves. And they say, well, it's better to win than to lose. It's like, well, how do you get there first? Oh, you have to win wild card, division, conference, get to the Super Bowl, give yourself a chance, right? And so the defense of not being there is not, well, we've never lost. Well, sure we have. Of course, we lost to the Steelers, and who else did we lose to? Packers, right? And you still have to try to get back. That you can't skip that. You can't pretend, right? No Cowboys fan should be so proud that every time an Eagles fan has a meltdown moment or a Commanders fan has a meltdown moment and they want to remind us that we've been back, it's like we haven't. And until the team is allowed to be the star and not the star that sits there and hops on podcasts on their off days or when they're injured and have nothing better to do, when we'd rather, this may be an old school opinion that we both share. If a player is in their off time and they're doing their podcast, it's fine, but it just smells like a lack of focus. We're used to seeing players who will run through walls, whether for themselves or for the coaches. that, we're used to the good old days when players hated each other from different towns, right?
Oh,
Um,
if you want to talk about hatred, you talk about the Doomsday Defense days where it was Randy White who was getting triple teamed,
mhm.
Harvey Martin coming off the end. And yes, Harvey has the actual sack record, kids. He had 23 sacks in a 14-game season.
Yep.
Unlike the 22 and a half sacks that Strahan got in a 16-game season. And then you had Ed Too Tall Jones. And I mean, that front alone was so despised. Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, Micah Parsons, yes, you are tremendous at attacking a quarterback. You're tremendous at it. But what you cannot do, Micah, you don't know how to stop the damn running game. You don't even recognize the run is coming at you.
That's right.
That's Lawrence Taylor understood when the run was coming his way.
That's why when everybody made the initial comparison, you cringe, whether you're comparing to the best running back, the best linebacker, in this case, LT, you're like, just let him show for a year or two that he's got both sides of a responsibility down. And of course, he didn't. And we all heard either through rumor or direct commentary that he wasn't so fond of having to shore up the run defense. It's like, but you're never going to have a perfect situation. That's even a comment for, say, Dak Prescott, which we'll get to later down the road here.
Yeah.
But you have to have that mentality, that capability, not necessarily the raw skill, certainly the technique to answer imperfection. You're just not going to have that perfect moment. We look at the 2007 Patriots who went all the way and then found out, I got punched in the mouth and I'm not perfect anymore. And I have to adjust. And they couldn't adjust in that key moment, right? And the Cowboys haven't been able to adjust to better than average, mediocre, get into the playoffs, have the division crown, which is meaningless if you can't go past it. You're not supposed to just get there. You're supposed to then take the next step. And they routinely find themselves on offense and defense in these situations where something's changed. Change with it. Don't freeze. No deer. There are too many deers and only one set of headlights.
Well, as I was saying to everybody before you joined me tonight here, Eric, Jerry is known for not having phone conversations that he initiates because he feels that that's the losing end of a trade. Okay, but you had Derrick Henry living in this city who was a total free agent who wanted to be a Dallas Cowboys, and you didn't pick up the phone either. This is the part that drives me bananas with the Joneses. It really, really drives me crazy. And again, we can get into this a little bit later with the whole salary cap thing for next season as well. And that's why I have Stephen Jones. Is he really this dumb as the banner? It is really, really not that difficult at all to create over $100 million of salary cap space. And there's Stephen talking about how hard it's going to be. Whoa! It just boggles your mind. It goes back. It goes back to even the training camp when they brought in Zeke again, and it was like, oh Lord, no. This man had a great career initially, and then of course John Mara got him suspended for the 6 games, and that cost him his 3rd straight rushing title. And yes, you Giants fans, it was your owner's responsibility for Ezekiel. And that's one time I was proud of Jerry, because Jerry was mad as heck. If he had been in the same room with John Mara, he would have hit that man. Jerry was really upset when they pulled that stunt on Ezekiel. But again, Ezekiel Elliott was always going behind the A gap, and that man was Travis Frederick. So now you got Jason Garrett and Kellen Moore, and then Kellen Moore with Mike McCarthy, continuing to run him up the A gap behind Tyler Biadasz, and it was just not going to. No, it hurt Ezekiel Elliott's career. That's the bottom line of that.
Yes,
right.
We can all talk about how Derrick Henry, at least from if you compare videos of how they treat themselves, that he has probably taken care of his body better over time than Zeke has. And even as big as Derrick Henry is, as King Henry is, he doesn't necessarily seek out the destructive play. If he doesn't have to, he won't. He will just outrun you. Okay, we've seen that time and time again. And you got Zeke, who was kind of reminding us of Marion the Barbarian, who, of course, post-career didn't do so well, perhaps because of some of that play style. And it's just like, live for the moment, sure. But if your goal is to get to the Super Bowl or continue to succeed more and more, you have to be available more and more, and you have to be in condition to handle that more and more. And it'll always bother me, perhaps as a separate, as a side here, that somehow they were never able to really get Zeke involved in the passing game. It's easy to look back at Emmett and say, my God, sometimes he received more passes in games than he did running opportunities. But there was just like the total opposite of that with Zeke. And at least my memory, which may be fuzzy, when he was at Ohio State, he was able to catch the ball. And I'll never understand that. And when you have that guy swinging out in the flat, just keep feeding them until they can't stop him. Same thing with what would have been Tony Pollard in previous years. And when you stop because somehow you think they've caught on to you or you've convinced yourself otherwise, it's a disaster. But back to, again, Derrick Henry, using Derrick Henry as an example, Jerry loves the fact that he'd like to believe that people will always be calling him first. He clearly doesn't subscribe to the idea that contact Derrick Henry and tell him, if you tell anybody, I'll swear it never happened, and then get down to business. If you give each other what you want, you can come to an agreement and say, yes, it was all Jerry. It's all praise be Jerry. Same thing with hiring the right coach, right? Even when Parcells was here, and certainly when Jimmy was here, just agree to not say anything. How about that? You can go and have your post game or pregame, but as long as you don't make it worse with what you say, you'll get as much credit as you think you need. But you can't do it.
Nope. And it's just, it is the reason why I say Jerry is a bully. And Jerry bullies everybody that he can, and he's doing so to Mike McCarthy in the negotiations now. And yes, folks, Mike McCarthy is going to be announced tomorrow before the Packers and the Eagles play each other, just like he did with Jason Garrett before. It's going to be another repeat performance, kids. It's just so idiotic. I mean, you've known for the entire since last offseason that Mike McCarthy was going to be in his last year. You've had this whole months and months on end of the season going on. You don't need to wait until the 14th of January. It's just silliness.
No, and it besides the fact that McCarthy always seems to look like he's swallowing the pride of 1,000 men, and that's not meant to be taken the wrong way. Boy, I shouldn't have said that. Swallowing the pride of 1,000 men. I said it again. Anyway, whether it's interviews or on the sideline, when he had his fantastic interview with Peter King, who should receive credit for helping kind of rejuvenate his reputation, and he said, we're doing all this, we're checking out all that, we're doing analytics. No, you're not, but it's nice to say. And then he had the sleepover at GM Jerry's house, and you just got to imagine what he said to get GM Jerry to basically say, I believe you when you say you'll kiss my ring. I believe you when you say you'll not get in the way of me getting credit when I think I need it. I believe you when you say you're desperate to get back in and you'll do whatever, right? And in the middle of all that shroud of do whatever I want, you'll somehow perform as if you were a stronger personality.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And again, GM Jerry is the only GM that never goes and scouts players. GM Jerry still has it into his little brain that he made the deal for Herschel Walker, which he didn't do. It was a conversation between him and the Vikings owner, and Jimmy Johnson went and did the deal.
Yes,
that is a well-known fact. It wasn't Jerry Jones. So and Mike Fisher is great at telling the real story about these things. you know, Jerry has this fantasy that he is more important than he truly is, and his idiot son. Really, I'm sorry. I can't refer to him just as Stephen Jones. It is the idiot son, Stephen Jones.
Yes.
Um, that guy got a chemical engineering degree from the University of Arkansas. He needs to go out and be a chemical engineer because he doesn't understand football. He does not understand how to deal with the agents. As we saw with Todd France and Dak Prescott the first go around.
Yep.
Jerry had to step in and save that whole deal and everything else. It really, really boggles your mind how Stephen Jones is going to be the next owner of the Dallas Cowboys. No, oh no. I mean, it really, if there's going to be an accident on the yacht, during free agency week, because the family all goes on the yacht.
Yeah.
Please leave Charlotte Jones at home and let her become the next owner. It's just really frightening to me.
Yes. Yes. So I would hope that Charlotte Jones, for example, might go out of her way to align herself with the right people, say more so than Jeannie Buss has done with the Lakers, and trying to support her effort to bring them back. Right.
Which really, this year, of course, I'm no longer able to cheer for the LA Lakers because they have that guy that's from Puke U.
Yes. Monty's like, get me on, damn it, get me on.
Yeah, get me on here, get me on here. Yeah.
Yes, and everyone in the sports world has now seen that episode of Landman where they have Jerry Jones. It was hilarious seeing some of the Cowboys fans on X saying, "Why is he a good actor?" It's like, you young naive fools. He just told you the truth.
Yep.
He got the Cowboys in part perhaps to work with his family, to have a family business. It's a career for him. He's going to drop everything. He didn't drop everything else. He still, as he said in the show, my oil and gas and this and that and all that. Cowboys branded everything, right? And now I see it wasn't so much for my family. It was really for me, and I really enjoy it. It's like, yeah, but you could do what you're doing right now in a side business and let adults run the Cowboys and allow the product on the field to make you think, what is it now? Is it 13 billion, 11 billion? I forget how much the whole organization's worth right now, franchise wise. But if the
Cowboys are worth 10.5 billion now.
Okay. We know, even idiots know, and maybe we're idiots. I'll speak for myself. Know that if the product was better, that amount, that value would double. And he doesn't. If it's improvement that doesn't have his name at the forefront of it, or that horrible smile, my lord, it's like a nightmare. I did say again that he's only rented the outhouse in the back of my head, not the full-blown mansion. So I'm going to stay with that. But this is not supposed to be the family farm where John Boy handles the pigs and Sally Mae handles the chickens and Papa Jerry handles the whatever. And I believe at some point he did not have that intention, but this is the way he comes across. Good, bad, or otherwise, advertising and media attention, it doesn't have to be that way. And with very few changes, he could look brilliant. And he just doesn't believe it. He refuses.
His first two head coaches that he hired, Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer, neither one of them had ever coached in the NFL before.
Mm-hmm.
And he won 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So what's this insistence now about needing to have a Super Bowl ring in order to be a Cowboys head coach? He did so with Parcells as well. But again, he certainly didn't have that opportunity with Jason Garrett.
Right.
Those 9.5 seasons of pure torture.
Mm-hmm.
But again, his insistence now upon finding a guy who already has a Super Bowl ring. Well, Okay,
And
but the important guys that need to have Super Bowl rings are the 53 players on that field.
yes,
And you and I talked about this a couple years ago. They don't sign anybody who has ever even played in a Super Bowl.
right,
How are you supposed to be at a draft and develop team without any true leaders on the field?
right,
You know,
right.
it boggles your mind.
Yes, yes. And what was it? What was this thing? It would be It would be embarrassing. It would be shocking if you knew the size of the check I would write if it guaranteed me a Super Bowl. It would be obscene. There is nothing I would do financially as opposed to managerially not to get a Super Bowl. And that was GM Jerry on the 20th of August in 2018 to Shan Sheriff and RGHO on 105.3 The Fan.
Yeah.
And clearly that it's not about the check, Jerry, the check you refuse to write. You could write a bigger check than embarrassing, and it's about the person who you want to hire being able to look at you. That that's what. Oh my God, why does his name slip my mind? The one who went to coach to sign up for the Tar Heels, your
Mr.
their new
Belichick.
Belichick. Okay, conceptually, Belichick was supposed to be the coach who said, I don't need your money. I don't need you. I am fascinated with the idea that I could possibly be the coach who finally gets this team over the hump, which is you. And I'll make a deal with you, Jerry. You take all the attention. I don't give a crap. You take it all. I can't stand the media, even though I'm obligated under the either the NFL Constitution or whatever it is that I have to give time to the media. Fine. Outside of that, you take it all. And don't ever, Jerry, don't ever look at my disinterest as disinterest in you. That's our gentleman's agreement. You otherwise give me my space and I will deliver for you. This team will look different, sound different, feel different, play different. And it's not so much, it wasn't whether or not Belichick would ever come to Dallas. That's the conversation that a coach has to have with Jerry, the one who is capable of changing things and must convince Jerry, you'll get all your airtime, but you're not going to have this. You'll get all the credit you want, but you're not going to have this. And that's our private understanding. Leave it alone. Let's move forward. Pay me whatever you want. I don't need your money. I need the glory, the ego buzz of taking this team back to the top, and you'll be part of it and you'll leave it be. And that obviously Belichick was never going to commit to that, as former players insist on the different shows you watch in the morning. And there's no other remaining coach who could, assuming McCarthy doesn't get re-signed and announced tomorrow, you've got your Mike Vrabel, who's, a mini Belichick, perhaps not. You've got your Ben Johnson, who I love it. Whichever team, whether it was the Cowboys or not, who said, he's really arrogant. Good. There was a reason why he said, I want $15 million a year.
And I want my own general manager as well.
Yes. I want equal branches of government, so to speak. And that surely was a message to a team like the Cowboys and GM Jerry. It's like, I'm not here so you can make me feel like I'm a beginner and I'm joining the brand. No, I'm here to win. I don't have time to waste. I don't care how young I am. As far as I'm concerned, Detroit could re-sign him for double his 1.8 million or even more, and he'd be thrilled because he knows he's not going to be meddled with.
Well, I mean, he can go to Jacksonville or Chicago, and Ryan Poles and Trent Baalke. If he's not in agreement with you, you guys are going to be very, very minimized by the owners, and that's going to be it. That's okay. I can live with that. But my part that I can't live with is Jerry insisting that he remains as the GM of this franchise. If I had been the GM for 30 years and never even gotten to an NFC Championship game, and I still get to keep my job, this is heaven.
Yeah, and he, every time he's confronted with that, however nicely, his answer is always, "That's fair. That's valid. That's fair." And I might fire myself as the GM, but I'm the owner, and I'm not going to do that. And it's like, he could go get a starring role on a TV series and accomplish the same thing he's doing now. He could be like, ESPN's Captain Clown, Stephen A. Smith, and go play that role Brick on General Hospital, whatever it is, and accomplish the same thing he wants to do now, but just without messing up America's team, the team that lots of America and around the world wants to see reclaim its former glory, not through bionics or special magic, just let things be.
And of course, he just doesn't do that. And of course, I was very, I was very upset because he was over in London a couple of weeks ago, and he was apparently attempting to buy the Tottenham Hotspurs, which would have been very, very bad news for Marina Sirtis of Star Trek: The Next Generation, who loves her Hotspurs. I've seen the tattoo up close and personal, but again, he doesn't need all this other stuff. But again, he's going to go out and brand himself as this great owner, this great guy. But okay, yes, you did a great thing by bringing in Pepsi instead of the Coke deal and all those other fun things that you've done, Jerry. I give you credit for all that stuff that you've done. And the way that you've branded them on TV is the NFL has been great.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff, I do not take any, I don't give him any disregard for any of that. Yes, he's a good businessman. He sold the league very well.
Yep.
But he sold the Cowboys even more. But what he has not sold is an old Cowboys fan like myself, that he understands all we care about those 8 appearances in Super Bowls in the first 25 years that I was a fan.
Yep.
The NFC Championship games, even when we lost to Montana, okay, I can handle that.
Yep.
But when you haven't been there for 30 years, you do not need to have anything to do with building this football team. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Tex Schramm was Jerry before Jerry was Jerry. Tex Schramm had all that marketing nonsense taken care of. He had the team at the center of things, with a little side bit with the cheerleaders that everyone, even fans from other teams, wanted to see. But he had that already established, and no one asked GM Jerry, even though everyone will say, well, if you're the owner, you can do whatever you want. Clearly there's something missing from the NFL Constitution. I keep referring to that. There's the CBA for the players, and there's the Constitution for the infrastructure of the NFL. And it's like, you don't have the right to be kind of a Donald Sterling. He's obviously not done what Donald Sterling did with the LA Clippers. But the point is, you don't just sit there and say, "I'll do what I want." You're being handed a huge responsibility, like being responsible for raising a family, and that's what an NFL team is, an NBA team is. All these huge teams with millions of fans, who many of which spend all their excess money to get that one weekend worth of tickets and the parking and all this stuff. And once you've been priced out and you're just watching it at home on these NFL contracts, these network contracts that are, we'll say, they're largely unearned for the teams that are dragged along. Okay. They're unearned for the best brand in the NFL that doesn't put the product on the field consistently or at all. And they're unearned for the teams that, with the revenue sharing. It's like, that's great. That's your agreement. But don't pump your chest out and say, we're the best this or that. You're not. You're just a tag along. You're in the dinghy with the rope or the bungee cord in the back. That's what you are. You can change that. But sorry, I've gone off on a tangent again. That's my specialty.
Hey, not a worry at all, Eric. Again, every year the Cowboys draw more fans on TV or streaming services now than anybody else.
Yep.
They did so again on Thanksgiving Day. And it doesn't matter who they play Thanksgiving Day. It's going to be the biggest draw of the year, bottom line, outside of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And again, I've said this a couple of times. I'd love to see the Cowboys and the Lions stop playing on Thanksgiving Day. I'd
Yep.
like to see Baltimore and Seattle have to host this thing for 10 years
Sure.
each and see how they survive it. You know, but again, it's going to be what it is. But the other 31 NFL owners need to walk into that room with Jerry and say, guess what? We're owners. We're not general managers. There's our vote, 31-1. You are no longer the GM, Jerry. You
Yeah,
are
he can do that. What's he
You
going
are
to do?
no.
I get that, using the John Gruden stuff as an example, they all have some level of email digital dirt on each other. I get it. And I
Yep.
could see him saying, hey, whatever floats your boat, guys, but I got this, remember. And they got to be willing to say, more people are willing to see, just like I am happy to see teams that used to languish. Remember when the Tampa Bay Bucks finally turned it around, and now the Detroit has turned it around. I'm not that kind of fan who love to see these teams just stay under someone's thumb for years and years and years. Their fans suffer. The league suffers because you've got the games that people don't want to watch, right? Oh, we're going to go on. They're going to get curb stomped. You don't spend your existence getting curb stomped. You need to improve. The league benefits. Everybody benefits when competition improves across the board. And that applies to the Cowboys, brand or not. And as you said, there needs to be a moment that can be had where they say, this is what you got to do. Don't make us have a second vote where we decide to take the brand and the team away from you, which he'd lose his mind and say, well, I'm going to blackmail all of you with all this dirt. At some point, you have no choice. NFL owners, Roger Goodell, you've all got your dirt, but it's not worth it for you to not want the thing that's on brand alone, leading the league, to also be a quality product as well. If you like your money, if you're as greedy as we all say you are, take this approach and your money will explode. You will want to give the money away. You'll have so much money. But you can't also sit back and say, well, we'll just think like GM Jerry. We're all complicit. We all like to think that way. We don't care. The brand's great. That's all we need from him. Let the team be mediocre. We'll not push for that to be improved.
But there are many other owners in this league who are just like Jerry. However, you look at Stephen Ross in Miami, and other owners as well. These guys, they only care about their bottom line.
Yeah.
They don't really care about the football game itself.
Yep.
That's just a side, and it's just And then you have other owners like David Tepper in Carolina who just absolutely interferes way too much.
Yep.
Holy moly! I mean that guy is just an absolute insane. He is insane.
Yeah.
And again, but going back to here, the lovely poster boy who was Stephen. Let's talk about next year's salary cap.
Yeah.
Yes, next year's salary cap, Dak Prescott has a huge number, but you can lower that number down to $53 million by just restructuring him.
Yep.
You could restructure CD Lamb for another $20 million.
Yep.
You have plenty of money at that point to give your superstar defensive player Micah Parsons his deal, and again, you save even more money on the salary cap. So I think I've created about $85 million on the salary cap just by doing those three things. That's it.
Yep.
Then you need to decide what you're going to do with Malik Hooker or Donovan Wilson.
Oh, what a fantastic choice.
Yeah. But again, you only have two post-June 1 salary moves that you can make, right?
Yeah.
So if you do Donovan Wilson, you save $7 million.
Yeah.
I think if you do Malik Hooker, it's 5.75.
Yep.
But again, one or the other needs to go post-June 1st, and then you have to worry about the other guy, Terrence Steele.
Yes. Oh my.
But again, with Terrence Steele, if you make him a post-June 1st cut, you save $14 million.
Mhm.
So I've already created $101 million,
Mhm.
and I haven't cut anybody from this roster except for 2 post June 1st cuts.
Right. And
And I don't need anybody's permission to do any of this either. So when Stephen Jones says, "Oh well, it's going to be a hard task," are you kidding me?
what worsens this? Let's sidetrack the 100 million plus that they could save by making these adjustments. And I forgot it was Dak. I think Dak. I could have sworn there was a quote somewhere where he said, "My contract is set up to have these adjustments made. It's
And
there."
even the Joneses have said the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, stop again, telling them to stop playing games. It's like it's a useless effort. But the other thing is that now that they've allowed the rest of the staff, except for Mike McCarthy, to go do whatever the heck they want, now it's an issue of, okay, there's it's double trouble. You obviously need to, if you're bringing McCarthy back, you need to find that ideal defensive coordinator yesterday to then to promise again that I'll be able to take your existing talent and do no worse and do better, right? Because you need to know, because you've got guys like Osa, you've got guys like Jordan Lewis, and there was a third, I think, that they really wanted to worry about. Well, there's Rico Dowdle, but to a lesser extent. And if you're going to bring him back, you better have that guy who can look you in the eye and say, "I can do no worse."
Yep.
Okay, because if they had, regardless of the injuries, which there were, what were there, 16 starters at one point?
Yeah, about there, 15 or 16.
Okay, all to
IR.
reserve, yeah, at different times across the season. Luckily, Deron Bland came back for about 7 games and did surprisingly well for being off so much. But you've heard me say before, as we get past the coaching and you get past who you make all those, you trim the salary cap so that you have those savings to perhaps bring back 1 or 2 or 3 of your people to help you avoid having to draft someone too high, even if they're worth it. Um, the Boise State running back, of course. What do I keep mispronouncing his last name?
Ashton Genty.
Genty. There we go, not Genty. We'd all love to have them, but if it comes down to picking 1 or 2 other key players that we need, whether it's another end, because we don't know if Sam Williams is going to be back to his old self when he's fully recovered from his knee surgery, his ACL injury, then you have to have Rico Dowdle in there as an example, because he proved he can do what he was told to do. The offensive line does a reasonable job. He can be serviceable, more than serviceable,
Yeah.
right? No one celebrates running backs who get over 1,000 yards anymore. That's gone. The expectation for a top-notch running back is, say, 1,300 to 1,500, easy. And then the rare one who gets to 2,000 and above, right? Like that one guy in Philadelphia. But
you mean the real MVP of this league?
yes.
Saquon?
Yes.
He's my MVP because he transformed the Eagles offense into what it is. He did that magnificently. Yes, he got robbed of all the touchdowns because he tackled at the 1 yard line, and that means a tush push for Jalen Hurts. Blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. I don't care about that. Saquon Barkley transformed this Eagles offense. You watched that team last year when they collapsed, and watch them now this year. Hello. It's all about Saquon Barkley.
Yes, and with some exceptions this year, he's helped, just like Zeke in play action back in 2016.
Yep.
He's helped Hurts look similar to how Dak did his thing, and in the case of getting in here into Dak, we don't need to. the two of us, we're not going to fool ourselves as to what he needs to succeed. We know that, as Jimmy Johnson said, he perhaps shouldn't have been paid that mammoth amount of money. It was not his fault. He accepted what he was offered. What was negotiated, he took it. He's allowed.
Yep.
That's his right. Okay. But he's not a Pat Mahomes. Even when Pat Mahomes has had his struggles this year, he doesn't have that improvisational skill where you're like, things are breaking and I'm not going to sit there and stare at it and wait for it to rebuild itself. I'm going to act. Okay. Which with Tony Romo was impulsivity until it wasn't. And then with Mahomes, it's not. Okay. But
Yeah.
you owe Dak. He's here for the next 3 years on that contract. You owe him as much play action ability and reasonable blocking as you can muster. And you don't sit there and you do what Parcells always said. Fit the system to the players, not the players to the system, whether it was him doing it or anybody else.
Which is why I couldn't handle Jason Garrett and his insistence on Dak Prescott becoming this pocket quarterback.
Yep.
No, when he was successful in 2016, he was going out of that pocket. He was running the football. He was getting away from pressure, et cetera, et cetera. And then no, he's got to become a much more pocket quarterback. And no, he didn't. He did not need to become this pocket presence that you all think he had to be. And again, he now throws into these tight windows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. And as far as Dak's injury goes, his hamstring has been reattached to the bone.
Yeah,
and he is recovering very, very nicely, Julio. So that's all going very well. But again, this is why when you watch Dak Prescott in that 2016 season there, he was phenomenal at moving up in the pocket, getting away from pressure, getting field, going downfield and running with the football. He did all that stuff, and then no, next season, no, we gotta rein him in. We can't have that. What kind of nonsense was that, Jason? Did you not remember the days of Roger the Dodger Staubach? No, of course he didn't.
Right.
You know,
and you know that GM Jerry picked up that. Well, he's the son of a former coach. He picked that up from Parcells or perhaps even Al Davis. And what does that mean to you, Jerry? So what? If the proof says it doesn't matter, that he has not taken that through osmosis from his father and presented it onto the field for success, then that doesn't apply.
Yeah, and I mean, Jason Garrett was a fine backup quarterback in the NFL. But I give him credit for his career. That's all fine and dandy. But he was not ever going to be a good head coach. And he's even worse as a broadcaster. Trust me, being a Notre Dame fan, having to listen to that idiot cover the Fighting Irish drives me bananas. It drives me up the wall.
The lounge singer type, hey, everybody. It's like, go away.
Yeah. Get out of here. Get off of my TV screen. If Louis Riddick doesn't get the Jets GM job, I pray to Lord that NBC hires that man away to cover the Fighting Irish.
Yeah.
Because when he did a couple of the games off the NBC network this year, he was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Unlike dumbass the clapper, as we all know him as. Yeah. That guy. 9.5 seasons worth of pure agony.
Yeah.
Pure agony.
I'm frankly tired of seeing, I'm going to say it like this. I'm tired of seeing Louis Riddick, an intelligent man, being asked to waste his time on ESPN and other things. He needs to be back in as a GM for a team that wants to improve because he knows his stuff, and it's just overdue. It's like talking about Darren Woodson needing to be in the Hall of Fame. It's like it's overdue. Louis needs it. Darren needs it. Let's go.
Yeah, that whole Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I've said this before. Yes, during the COVID years, they added more veterans into the mix. Well, they didn't get enough of them in there, and this applies to so many players. Kenny Anderson of the Bengals, Darren Woodson is the obvious one for the Cowboys, but there's so many of them that deserve to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame that never get enough votes. It's just totally asinine the way that the Pro Football Hall of Fame has done this. Those guys all need to come, and I'll even go with a former Redskin. And see, I said that properly because he wasn't a commander; he was a Redskin. Jerry Smith, the tight end from the '60s and '70s,
Yep.
he deserved to go in. But of course, you know what? He was the first gay player, so we can't ever touch him. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous.
Yes. It's
You know?
it's once again, it's amazing what quality of the product on the field can shield or distract. Anything else is just, it's either gravy or it's off in the periphery, and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Get the core right. We could say it again and again till we're blue in the face. Get your offensive line and defensive line right. Everything else flows out of that. Same concept with getting the product, the overall product, the team, the results on the field.
Everybody talks about the triplets of Smith, Aikman, and Irvin.
Yep.
For the '90s Cal. I don't. I talk about the great wall that we had up front.
Yes.
Stepnoski at center, Eric Williams, Larry Allen, all these guys up front. They were a nightmare to attack.
Yes.
Oh, yes. But what else did they love to do? They loved to run block. See, this is the thing that I've been yelling at to all these people at Team NBS Media and the DM rooms and all that other nonsense. Offensive linemen get to attack when they're on the ground.
Like Eric Williams on Strahan.
Good. Oh, yeah. Just smoked him. Just absolutely smoked him.
Yes.
And this is why the running game matters. It's not about what a quarterback can do with his arm, kids. This is the real game of football. Is on that ground, watching an offensive lineman pancake a defensive end or a defensive tackle or the linebacker when they get to that second level. That is pure football.
Yes. And I think it was just 2 days ago, that clip that always makes its rounds on X. I think it was either 93 or 95 home playoff game against the Packers. And Aikman goes back to pass and lets one go to Alvin Harper, who's like, woo! And you notice that you've got Emmett going out in the flat. You've got Johnson going out this way. Both has safety valves. He didn't need either one because the line was just handling his business.
Yep.
It's an incredible thing to see.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, all of you Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen fans and Joe Burrow fans, Troy Aikman to Alvin Harper is the longest postseason pass in playoff history. Oh, darn, it's another record that the Cowboys have. There you go. Yeah. And again, Troy Aikman was not noted for his passing abilities. But again, because they ran the ball so well, then he used the pass precisely to a Michael Irvin and an Alvin Harper and of course, the great Jay Novacek. That's real football.
Yeah.
That's real football.
Yeah.
And again, the Cowboys have not had that mindset. Of course, we all saw this year at the training camp. Rico Dowdell was going to be the running back. It was obvious from day one at Oxnard. His speed was there. His vision was there. Mm-hmm. This is where I question McCarthy, though. And again, was this an influence of Jerry and Steven because we had to bring Ezekiel back, that you had to put Ezekiel Elliott out there? What the hell was that?
Yeah, if McCarthy, again, he may have been quoted when Dowdell finally got in and was taken over, that this is really what it needs to be, or in the background he was saying, I want Dowdell, I don't want Zeke. It's like that type of thing, as you just said. There can't be that influence. Even when Al Davis had all his faculties and was younger and more productive, the worst thing he ever did was actually take his running back off the field to punish him for something. aka Marcus Allen. He didn't try to remove or force a worse player. They had Napoleon. If they hadn't had Napoleon McCallum, maybe he would have changed his tune. But the point is that can't happen, especially with someone like Mike McCarthy, who, for all intents and purposes, even back, one of the reasons why he departed Green Bay involuntarily, was that he just could not stand up to Aaron Rodgers, among other things. And you saw the stories about how he'd go and get a massage away from practice, whatever that was, to help de-stress. It's like, you've got that monkey on your back. That's staying there. That's not like with Steve Young in the Super Bowl saying, take the monkey off my back, which was valid. With McCarthy, everyone knows that dirty laundry. And you've come to the place where you've got GM Jerry, the bully, as you said, who is making sure that he puts a thumb on your personnel scale anytime he wants. And you don't have, at some point, unless I find out that McCarthy is like deeply in debt, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who, if given the opportunity and knew he had police protection around him, he could just approach Jim Jerry and say, you're not going to do this anymore. You're going to get what you paid for.
McCarthy making $4 million a season. He makes $4 million a season.
Yeah.
Andy Reid makes $19 million.
Yeah.
You know, how much did that loser from that school up north sign for the Chargers? That Harbaugh clown.
10 or 12, I think.
Yeah. You know, these guys are making 3 and 5 times the amount of money that Mike McCarthy is making. But Jerry, I thought you were willing to write those big checks.
Yeah.
You know, now we discussed earlier how you can make $113 million without having to basically do anything other than the two guys that you would cut, Donovan Wilson and Terrence Steele.
Yep.
$113 million in this era. You think you can't find yourself a new left tackle or a right tackle, another safety, and this includes signing Micah.
Yep.
You know, he could get his $36 million a year or whatever he wants. That's fine and dandy.
Yep.
You're all done, but we know GM Jerry believes that the deadline makes a deal. No, you dumb old man. What you did with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb this year, I mean, I knew right away. As soon as those deals weren't done last offseason when they should have been done, that the Cowboys were going to struggle this year because there was going to be no money to sign anybody in free agency.
Yep.
Now, again, yes, you give up a compensatory pick, which they don't like to do. Okay, top. I want some winners on that field. And that's the price you pay.
Yes. Yes.
Just like they're going to get the compensatory picks this year for the guys that went to Washington.
Yep.
You know, they love getting them back, but they hate giving them up. Well, that's just dumb.
Yeah, they only have value to the people who know how to use them, Jerry.
You know, it really boggles the mind again how their mindset is so stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then we can go into the whole drafting thing. I mean, yes, Jerry does talk about at the draft. Jerry doesn't really make draft decisions, however. Will McClay and Steven basically are the guys that run the draft. But again, Will McClay, you've had a couple of very bad drafts in a row here, son. And you've also had a very bad tendency of missing in the second round.
Yes.
Which is a bad round to be missing picks on.
Yes. Yes.
You know, like when they drafted Tyler Smith, and there's Steven and Jerry saying this is our future left tackle, and I'm just like, oh Lord, no. Oh Lord, no. Did you see me on Draft Central with Jeff and Bill that year?
Oh yeah.
This guy is a left guard. He is going to be a great left guard. He is not a left tackle. And here's the reasons why. Because he holds way too much out there.
Yeah.
He does no. But as a left guard, he's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But Steven and Jerry, this is our future left tackle. Huh? What the hell are you on about?
Yeah.
You know,
and
And then again, the coaches have too much say in this draft as well.
Yeah.
Again, like you said before, what Bill Parcells said, you give me any player and I can coach that player.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what that's what the job of an NFL head coach and his assistant coaches are. You don't tell me a player that fits your system. You're going to take the best player available that the Dallas Cowboys have on their scout board.
Yes. Yeah.
Bottom line.
You've heard some coaches in the past, some famous coaches say, you give me a handful of players who have not so much raw skill, but a fantastic mind for technique. They just don't put themselves in a position to fail. They know what to do and when to do it. And if a player is going to beat them, it'll be because they out hustled them or because their raw skill was that much and that special. Outside of that, you got to have I'm always hoping that the next draft results in players who magically have that combination. They have a lot or some raw skill that can be refined, but they have that brain for technique. It's like, if I get injured, if my career doesn't go the way it's going, but I still value this team, that technique is what's going to save me every damn Sunday, every practice, so that they're going to have to drag me out of here. And that's what the coach has to impress upon them.
And again, that goes to Tyler Guyton this year.
Yes.
Tyler Guyton apparently wasn't really injured. He was hurting.
Yeah.
But when you're hurting, young man, you get back. You get yourself back out of that football field. Now, again, here was a former right tackle at Oklahoma.
Yes.
Who was the blindside protector for left-handed Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
Switching over to the left-hand side, that does not work for so many guys. So again, why did you draft him at 29? Why did you take a chance on this kid from Oklahoma? Oh, because he went to a big school. That's what it boils down to. Will McClay loves the big school players.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've got other guys who could have been gotten later on in that draft who would have been just fine at left tackle. Asim Richards ends up playing left tackle most of the end of the season anyway.
Yep.
He did just fine, thank you very much. And what round was he drafted in? Oh, yeah, the 5th or 6th. You don't need to go for the big gun like everybody thinks you do in round 1, especially when you're drafting at the end of round 1.
Yes.
And again, last year they made that trade with Detroit and went down to the 29th pick.
Yeah.
But because they saw all the offensive tackles come off the board already, oh, well, we better get one now. Okay, yeah. Hello. It wasn't like the year where they drafted Zach Martin and all the fans were up in arms, whereas I was like, hello, we've got our great right guard.
I was laughing my head off. That was incredible.
I mean, I just knew, and Travis Frederick before that from Wisconsin,
mm-hmm.
they were winners, and
yes.
again, and then again you had Mr. Smith on the left tackle position from USC, who again people were criticizing. And really, did you not watch this man dominate teams at USC? Did you not watch that?
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to the last couple of drafts. Mozzie Smith, I just like, oh no. If you had watched that school up north play that year, Mozzie Smith never finished anything. He never finished his plays.
Mm-mm. No.
Now there was a young man out there tonight for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Keanu Benton from the Wisconsin University,
mm-hmm.
who did finish plays, and yes, he's had a much better career than Mozzie Smith has had.
Yeah.
Far.
Yeah.
And then you follow up Mozzie Smith with a 25-year-old tight end in Luke Schoonmaker, who had nothing but injuries to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's your second round pick.
Yeah.
How long? What planet are you guys on?
And worse, when you mention Schoonmaker, and you got Ferguson, who seems to get injured kind of in a Jeff Swaim-like way. He's got immense talent, but he struggles partly due to his playing style. Let me get that extra yard. Let me see if I can get a little more injured. They've set themselves up where they might dare to draft or acquire another tight end this offseason to shore up against that, because it's we've talked about
there's a young man that plays in Atlanta who never gets used properly.
Yes.
Hello, Kyle Pitts. You come on down here. We'll take you.
Yep. As long as they don't make the mistake of saying we're going to Whittenize you. Witten was Witten.
No,
This guy's not that.
that's right.
That's right.
Exactly.
I had another point went out of my head, so let's continue.
Well,
it was the after all is said and done, after free agents are pulled back in or not, after salary cap's been shuffled around and we've got our draft picks and all that, at the end of the day, you still have to have a coach, not merely a coach, but a coach who can convince the players, again, in reference to Dak and maybe a few others, you don't get to count on perfection. You get to count on imperfection. I'm going to coach you so that everything's an if-then statement, just like in programming. If this happens, then try this. If this happens, then try that. You're not going to be viewed improperly if you do the then. Okay? It's when you stop and go, well, this isn't going how it was written out. Well, it's not going to. You're going to have a team that is worse than your team suddenly rise up and have a great day. What are you going to do? You don't get to choose to look confused. And again, it's not just Dak at key moments. You always see me hashtag in the moment.
In the moment.
This can all be solved to a great degree if you have a coach or coaches who can reach the players. It's not really coaching them up. It's convincing them in a Jimmy Johnson-esque way. He had was it his degree in psychology or something like that, sociology, where you've convinced these players, I don't have to force something. I know what my fourth, the following your route tree, following your options is not just about, well, I followed where all my 3, 4, 5 receivers are going. My sixth option is to throw it away. My seventh option is to get the hell out of the pocket and slide. It's not to get sacked. It's not to go backward. I've got those two options.
Yeah, and again, these are things that Tom Landry, who was so stoic and all that jazz on the sidelines.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have just been chewing inside watching Roger Staubach dance around that backfield and all that other jazz that he did for years. Yeah. But he knew that he could trust Roger Staubach. He knew it.
Yes.
And again, they don't seem to trust Dak Prescott that same way. That's the thing that drove me nuts, because as a 4th round draft pick, a guy who was supposed to be just basically learning on the job and all this other jazz as the backup and the record scouts team and all that jazz. Well, when Tony got hurt and he went in there, that was magical.
Yes.
It was magical. And John Kitna was the guy who helped Dak Prescott become an NFL quarterback. What happened with Kitna? They got rid of him. Yeah. It's just so dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. You saw the difference when they basically took what I call it. Did I call it 2K, Kitna and Kellen? Because they were tag team with him. You saw the work they did. And Dak was all in a way that GM Jerry would never be. He would never know the difference. And I remember John Kitna's son had some kind of legal trouble, but outside of that, which has nothing to do with football, the job, if Kitna wasn't begging off, they should have kept him. There was room for Kellen. There was room for Kitna. There was room for McCarthy had that stayed in place. Align, succeed. And again, this is the danger. Well, let me step back for a second. You've got fans and some prognosticators from time to time who will say, well, they'll fall back and say, well, what do you expect from a former 4th round pick? He overachieved. I mean, can't you give him credit? You get the credit. And then what do you do after that? It's not get the credit and that's it. You have to keep ascending or don't, outside of things you cannot control, there are always things you can control. And that's the thing I'm always concerned with, not afraid of, because it'll happen, it happens. But we could have this great roster coming into 2025 where GM Jerry and son Steven have done these things you couldn't have imagined them doing unless it was 3 decades ago. And then somebody gets hurt. And that's not the reason, again, to go, what do? You have your additional options. Use them. Don't wait for someone to tell you. Otherwise, why do coaches exist? If they can't reach you and you take them onto the field with you, then and if you're and no one wants to imagine saying, okay, Dak, in the second year of your massive new contract, they're going to try everything to get rid of you because you are getting in your own way.
Yep. And again, I mean, last year when I was writing those articles where I was trading away Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons, that it was for a reason.
Right.
And mostly it was for their benefit because they were getting screwed by Jerry and Stephen Jones.
Yes.
That's the bottom line of all of this is Jerry and Stephen continue to screw the football team that we see on this field every Sunday.
Yep.
And until that comes to a stop, I'm sorry, Cowboys fans, we can win the NFC East, but we're going to fail yet again come playoff time because, again, they don't have the knowledge to go out and get a Super Bowl player who has, when they had Stephen Gilmore in that secondary, thank you. You finally found somebody who's actually played in a Super Bowl. Well, what did Stephen Gilmore do? Who did he help? Oh, Trayvon Diggs.
Yep. And even, I guess to a lesser degree, maybe Michael Bennett, brother of Marty B. Everyone who paid attention remembers. You could just see the look on his face develop when he first joined the team, and he's watched these guys play, and they're getting in these in the moment situations, and they're crumbling. And then you see the report, and you hear the audio of him. They claim he was pleading with his teammates to get out of your own way. Wake up. You're in the moment. It certainly could have been other things he said, but it's like, if you don't have those experienced players, even a few of them, and you're not giving them the voice that they brought in with them, and they find that the players are in units or entirety sleepwalking, or again, deer in the headlights, and he's having to plead with them, this is not how it's done. I'm out of my mind. Do something. Why did I join you? Why did I agree to be traded to you? What is the point? I could retire because this is not how football's played.
DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, that man has been a Cowboy his entire career. Yes, the crazy fans out there always say, well, he doesn't get enough sacks. And that always drives me nuts because the pressure that he puts onto a quarterback also causes something. Oh yeah, a quarterback throws off balance and he fumbles the football and he throws these interceptions. That is how you play the edge position. It's not about the number of sacks you get.
Yeah.
The pressure matters, and that's something that Michael Parsons is very good at now. He gets him in pressure. That's great. You don't need to have those 22 and a half sacks, though, Micah. You don't need the record. You continue to hound a quarterback the way that you do, and that will cause them to make those mistakes. And again, that's just the way that football should be.
Yeah. And last comment here on DeMarcus Lawrence. I was one of those people who, after that 1 year, his contract year, when he blew up, and then he came back and injury, lower numbers, I had to really look hard at the available tape I have access to and go, oh, pressures. He's doing the next best thing to nabbing the quarterback, making the quarterback make poor decisions. Okay. And he really was, from the edge, acting more like a Jay Ratliff, which is even better.
Yeah.
Kind of a tweener.
Yep. And Marshawn Nealand is going to be a carbon copy. He was an excellent draft pick. He was hurt earlier in the year. Then he finished off playing for the Cowboys. And again, if the Cowboys do draft properly this year, Julio, I mean, I can give you an Ashton Genty being taken.
Yeah.
And I can still succeed because I trade down in the second round and I get us a fourth round pick as well. And I'll take Savion Williams. I'll take Jihad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama, pardon me, in round 2. I pray to Lord that Savion Williams from TCU is available in round 3. If not, I'll take the other TCU receiver, Jack Beck. I'm fine with either one of those. And then I can take a safety, particularly Xavier Watts from Notre Dame would be my preferred guy.
Yep.
Then I can get you another tight end from Syracuse, Rondé Gadsden, whose father played in the NFL. I can get him. There's all kinds of players who are available, and that goes to the 5th round, and I can finish off, or I can go with taking Jihad Campbell at 12, or even trading down in the 1st round again to get more picks, which I've even done to even take Ashton Jeanty down at 18 even. He's been available. He's still been available, right? But in some of the mocks, he does go to the Vegas Raiders or to somebody else. But again, for the most part, he's still available. Well, I can still build a damn fine roster of new players for the Cowboys. This draft is it's not very top heavy.
Right.
I've only got 12 first round grades on players. 12. That's it. Normally I'm at 16 to 18. This year I've only got 12. So the Cowboys are one of the 12 teams at this moment, picking 12, right? And this year we're not going to see the same type of talent at offensive tackle that we did last year. They're just not there, right? Yeah. But again, I can build a damn fine roster of new players for the Cowboys. Now, does Will McClay understand that part? I'm beginning to have my doubts.
I hope so, because when you think of, that's what makes the Michael Steele thing. Excuse me, not Michael Steele. What am I doing?
Terrence Steele.
Yeah, Terrence Steele, otherwise known as Aluminum. If they do cut him, they got to get his replacement right. Unquestionably, regardless, it then becomes not an issue of money. Just like Dak deserves play action to return to his repertoire because of the people around him, he deserves a right tackle he can more often trust than not. And
well, the last 7 games of the season, Terrence Steele's numbers really did improve. Now, that goes back to the 2022 season when he was fantastic run blocker. He's never been that great of a pass blocker.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that I worry about, because you see the side of the field that TJ Watt hangs out at, the Hutchinson from Detroit, and these guys aren't coming after your left tackle so much anymore. They're going after the weaker side now, which is the right tackle.
Right.
Again, changes do happen in football, folks. Lawrence Taylor was the guy who made left tackles very important in the game.
Yes.
Because he was always coming after the left-hand side.
Yes.
So again, when the Cowboys do draft this year, whether it's at 12, lower down, or again moving lower down in the 2nd round to pick up a 4th round pick, etc., there are good players available, especially at running back. So you don't need to have Ashton Jeanty if you guys are all dead set against it. Even though I wrote about Bijan Robinson, and Jahmyr Gibbs, who are both top 10 picks, and I think they're both pretty damn good. It boggles my mind how people do not understand the running game matters.
Yeah.
Like Derrick Henry, hello. Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
Or even Aaron Jones up in Minnesota, Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. Yeah. These guys do matter.
And conversely, like I said earlier a couple times, we'd love to have that and the return of what we deem the traditional Dallas Cowboys offense. But when one of those key players goes down, it can't be like who was it? No, I'm not talking about Curvin Richards, who just couldn't stay focused enough. He had the talent, he just couldn't stay focused. It was the other fella, not even Troy Hamburg, but you can't if you if you have second and third and fourth string who are not as good as your starter, find a serviceable way to take those three like Voltron, all the five lions, put them together. It
Yeah.
can't be we lost our guy and that's the end. It can't be all or nothing, and that goes back to again the appropriate coaches they bring in underneath McCarthy if they indeed bring him back. It's easy to say it's all the players because they're on the field, but you have to convince them again in a Jimmy Johnson-esque way. You can do this. This is how you can do it. You will always have these options. You will always be able to just swing past your way out of it. If you don't have the bell cow, you'll be able to do this instead. It's not nothing.
No, and again, the way that they approach things really does boggle my mind, because the last big trade that they made was Amari Cooper,
Right.
right?
And even then, it was like everything else these days. It was at the last second. It's like, what's more important to you? Giving yourself as much runway possible to make a decision if you need that much time, or waiting till the very end saying, surprise, look at me, look what I did, and now pray that what you brought to your team is going to improve your team. No guarantee.
Which Amari Cooper did for a while, but again, Amari Cooper had his issues come to COVID, and that was goodbye. You're out of here. I mean, that's one thing I did agree with Jerry Jones on was being vaccinated and all that. Jerry, I was shocked because, of course, we all know Jerry's politics are, to the right.
Oh yeah,
and they're not gentle right either. But at least he was smart enough to understand that this thing was killing people. But again, when the Cowboys succeeded before, it was always because of the ground game first, and then the successful, efficient passing. Yep. I don't want to see Dak Prescott throwing the ball 45 times.
Nope.
Period. I don't even want to see him having to reach 30.
Yeah.
25 to 28 is just fine. That's great. Mm-hmm. But how do you do that when you don't have the ability to run the football? You can't.
Right. And in situations where if we have that established, and it's similar to 2016, if you have that shot and you see it plain as day, feel free to take those extra shots and go those extra passes because you can, not because you put yourself in a position where you're forced to do it.
Did you see Trey Lance's final game here?
Yeah. Yep.
Did you see how he was throwing open? He was going to the receivers before they were even open.
Anticipation.
Oh yeah. That's the key, and he was pretty successful at it too.
Yeah.
That's what Dak Prescott was doing back in 2016, folks.
Yes. And now
that's been taken away.
Yes. It is not simply him, but the absence of the approach, the surrounding imperfect pieces that he minimum needs just exacerbates when you watch him and you're like, well, Troy woulda and Tony woulda and even Danny woulda and Roger certainly woulda already released that pass. And the receiver's job is to go get it, to finish out their route. Even if there's a Ronnie Lott saying, I see it already, you're dead. That's your job. Instead of, hesitation, dead to rights, everybody loses.
Exactly. Yeah. I've never been a big Danny White fan because, of course, I mean, when he did get there, he failed. He was always going to fail.
Yes.
And when I hear the story of Gil Brandt not wanting to take Warren Moon in that NFL draft that year, it still kills me. Yeah. It just kills me because I got to see Warren Moon up close and personal playing up here in Edmonton. And I'm serious. You could hear that football whistle in the air.
Yeah.
And his accuracy was so good. And it's just like, and when I spoke with Larry Highbaugh, who was a defensive back up here in Edmonton, and Larry Highbaugh would come and get me to go to the games because my dad was gone for UN peacekeeping and all that jazz. Larry Highbaugh would come and get me so I could go see the Eskimos. And I asked Mr. Highball one day, why isn't he in the NFL? And Larry Highball gave me the honest truth. They don't think we're smart enough. This goes back to 78, of course. So the black quarterbacks were
Right.
being treated like garbage. But again, to find out that John Wooten wanted Warren Moon to be a Dallas Cowboy and Gil Brandt turned him down, I just, oh, no. I just think of how much more successful the Cowboys would have been.
Yeah. He's one of those. There are a handful of quarterbacks. Okay, we'll say maybe 10 to 12 in the history of the NFL, where it didn't matter if that quarterback was beating your team handily, or you could just watch in awe of their artistry, and he was one of them.
Montana, Marino. I mean, I still say if I'm having a single game, everybody's in their prime, Joe Montana is going to be my quarterback. I don't care. Yes, he caused the catch and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But Montana in the playoffs was so masterful.
Yes. Even
and there's another guy who belongs in the Hall of Fame, Roger Craig.
Oh yes, Mr. Highstep.
Roger Craig has not been put in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What games do you idiots who vote for these players have watched?
Yeah.
I mean, Terrell Davis got in on his shortened career, and it boggles my mind how Roger Craig isn't. This year's running back position, Julio, is very strong. You could go from Ashton Genty in round 1. You could go to the Caleb Johnson from Iowa. You've got Devin Neal. You've got all kinds of running backs. The 2 running backs from Ohio State are both going to be drafted, Judkins and Travion Henderson. There are so many running backs this year, it is not even funny. They are the deepest position this year. And I would also say defensive tackle is also the second best position in this crop of draft players. Well, no, but Eric, come on now. You know the Cowboys that they just don't understand how to.
I know. I figured maybe they someone could sneak into the war room and just chloroform the whole room and have one responsible person run the card up, and it's all fixed.
See, because okay, here's also Odigizua, right?
Yeah.
Who is going to get offers? He is going to get offers.
Yes.
Do Jerry and Steven give him more money?
Need to.
Probably not. So there's your 3 technique who's now gone.
Yeah.
You have Mozzie Smith, who's not a very good 1 technique. I would actually take the other kid who is a 1 technique from that school up north, and that's Kenneth Grant. 340 pounds, and that man can also go after the quarterback as well. I mean, if you watch the way that Michigan stoned Ohio State this year, Grant and Graham they were there all game long.
And to be greedy, if they were to keep Osa, he again loosely reminds me of a Jay Ratliff, who was a tweener who could change roles if you needed to. Why? Because when you get your shiny new defensive tackle that everyone's excited about, it reminds you of, say, why do I forget his name? The guy who had the belly that he looked like he was pregnant with 3 children. He played defensive tackle for New England and then for Houston before
Vince Wilfork.
Okay, he was an oddity that he stayed as healthy as he did for as long as he did. That's not normal nowadays, at least for the Cowboys. They can't seem to have a defensive tackle, a true clog up the middle defensive tackle.
I've got a kid who needs to be signed as a UDFA.
Okay.
He's 6'5", but he weighs 465 pounds. He played at the University of Florida. 465? Sign me up. Put him in there. Put him in there on first down. I don't care.
Lay down sideways.
Yeah. Now, how Florida allowed this guy to get that big is beyond me. But I mean, that man is massive. He needs to become a UDFA and maybe weigh 380.
I remember when you mentioned him like last week, and reminded me of Aaron Gibson.
Yep. Yep. But again, and that's where the Cowboys also succeed much more so than at the draft table is their UDFA signings. They've always done so. Tony Romo was a UDFA, Marquise Bell is a UDFA. Yes. All these guys that they bring in like that, they do very well at that part.
Yeah.
If they get a little bit better at the actual taking the best player available, regardless of what Steven and Jerry say,
yep,
this team will be better, and they can come back in 2025 and retake the NFC East.
I totally agree. Without sounding like a homer, that's there to be had. The haters of Cowboys fans in particular, not so much the team, but the fans, you understand that if Jerry were put in a broom closet, like was claimed by son Stephen when they were signing, or the other way around, when Stephen Jones was put in the broom closet when Jerry wanted to sign Dion to that big contract, right? Flip that script now. The appropriate actions can happen: draft, coaching, performance. That's there to be had. Yeah.
It really has boggled my mind the way that the way that they come out after this player has been taken and he's going to be our next left tackle. They said the same thing with Tyler Guyton last year too.
Yeah.
And it just boggles your mind because these guys aren't ready to be left tackles in the NFL.
Just like it's like talking about quarterbacks who I, as a quick aside, with the CFB games that have been happening, every time I see a quarterback, okay, it's like stop, get them ready to see the whole field, call things out. For all these student athletes now who may not any longer have to spend so much time studying, if you know what I mean, take that time you have now stepped away from and learn a full system. Because you're going to come out of there, everyone's going to celebrate you for the news.
This is the big issue that I have with the way that the whole system works today is the college game is such a far cry from the NFL game.
Yeah.
And these quarterbacks, Caleb Williams is perfect example last year. Everybody was saying he was the number one quarterback. Jaden Daniels was. Daniels was the number one quarterback.
He's proven it. Yep.
And he proved it this year. But again, everybody was all hot and bothered about Caleb Williams. Did you not see him suffer against the Fighting Irish? Did you not see him suffer those 9 sacks?
Yeah.
And he had no answers.
Yeah, especially when even after his escapability, after you've escaped, you still have to deliver, and he couldn't do that. It's just like going back to Tony Romo. If all he had was escapability but couldn't deliver after that, the same thing with him. And you have to marry the two things together, or have one that's so good that the other one is not as important. It's just not necessary.
Well, Tony Romo had the foul up in Seattle.
Oh, he sure did. And I don't know if I posted this on X last week. Everything I keep finding, everything that is in my head is from last week. But there was, I remember seeing an article about how either it's a story made up or NFL is telling the truth. They were explaining how the slick balls were indeed not treated, not roughed up like the kickers usually do. And he got the brand new ball that was practically covered in Vaseline, and that was the end. It doesn't matter, because ultimately, if the ball is going to slip away that badly, then your hands had a hand. You had a hand in that. So there's no escape for that.
And again, you can go back to 10 years ago tomorrow.
Yeah.
The catch that took the NFL to determine a year and a half later it was an actual catch by Des Bryant. Yeah. That was the team that could have made a Super Bowl run. Mm-hmm. That team should have beaten Green Bay. Mm-hmm. They had it, and you and I both were adamant that he had that catch.
3 steps.
It took the NFL a year and a half to determine that, yes, Des Bryant caught that football. Mm-hmm. so again, that meant more torture for yourself, being the
Yes.
torture Cowboys fan, and of course for me, because I mean I've been cheering for this team since 1969.
Yeah.
I've seen them in every Super Bowl game, all 8 of them. But to have to watch what we see continually out of the Jones pairing just drives me absolutely off the deep end. They
Right.
they they just continue to just bully people around like Jerry does. Steven is so dumb. I mean,
Yeah.
if you guys don't follow the Cowboys on YouTube or listen to 105.3 FM, the station that Jerry and Steven both go on.
Yeah.
Every time I hear Stephen Jones, I just want to punch that man in the mouth so fast. He is such a dumb man.
For a guy with a chemical engineering background, he has very little knowledge of the chemical reaction that's necessary to put all this stuff together on game day.
Absolutely. Now, once again here, this has been a lovely time going through all of the things that bother us as Cowboys fans.
Reasonable things, not unreasonable,
They're
reasonable.
not unreasonable. They're not. And Stephen A. Jones and his silly attacks against the Cowboys fans. I'm sorry, that whole spiel is just a bunch of nonsense. I've seen much worse fans in Jacksonville,
Yeah.
Tampa Bay,
Yeah.
who do crazy things and all that other jazz. Like that one guy on X who was always running through his door into his room before that game. Did you ever see? I just blocked that guy. That guy he was such a dumbass.
Yes. He's got a following of like 15,000 fans, and it's all the. I'm going to say it. It's all the lower level common denominator fans who are going to be so upset. How could you call us lower level? Because you just don't have the depth. You don't have the depth, and that's okay. You don't.
And again, like I said, I've now been cheering for the Cowboys for 56 years. You're not going to take this away from me.
Nope.
Jerry Jones has only owned this team for 36 of them.
That's right.
So I was around a lot longer as a Dallas Cowboys believer and a fan and all that good sort of stuff. I mean, my aunt who lived in Dallas, she had married an American, and she came up to visit us in 1969, just after my birthday, just before Christmas, and she gave me my first Cowboy shirt. And I'm sure I actually know that it was to aggravate my dad. Aunt Martha was the oldest sister, right? She was the boss. And she was 4'11" on 90 pounds. And here's my dad, this big, massive guy, who was he was petrified of this woman. Absolutely. Aunt Martha, you got to stay up here. You need to stay right here. This is heaven. Because he was like, yes, ma'am. Nope. He was like, and I'm looking going, huh? What? This is heaven. She oh yeah, heaven. But again, because my dad was a Bears and a Steelers guy. He loved the Bears or the Steelers, right? He didn't ever pick one, but he always had the Bears and the Steelers. And of course, me being the Cowboys fan, he didn't like that very much. No. But again, I got to go down to Dallas on my own as a little kid.
Yeah.
Get off the plane, and Aunt Martha would meet me at DFW, and I got to go see Randy White, Ed Too Tall Jones, Roger Staubach, Drew Pearson on the field, right? And then her company also paid for one road trip every year. So I would go down for the Thanksgiving Day games in Dallas usually. And then we would also go on the road trips. So that's how I got to know, Washington, D.C. and even the old vet in Philadelphia. And no, I never ran into any vicious Eagles fans. They were there. You knew that they were there because the police were loading up the jail in the vet.
Yes.
on a weekly basis, but
Yes.
nobody ever attacked us because we were Cowboys fans. Today's I don't know. I really don't know. But
Right.
again, that's where I got my love for the Dallas Cowboys, was through my Aunt Martha.
Mhm.
And so that love never died. Even with Jerry's nonsense, the love of the Cowboys has never gone away for me.
Yeah.
And when people want to say, how can you be a Cowboys fan? They don't get, especially the younger fans.
Yes.
Like that 1978 SI NFL films where the man from Philadelphia said that they're America's team. I never bought into the America's team nonsense, and neither did those players. Those players hated that because it was a target on their backs.
Yes.
Okay, so I've never been one to spout off that yes, they're America's team. They've been my team.
Yes.
And when somebody is your level of football knowledge, etc., it applies the same thing to me with Notre Dame. I
Yes.
was born to be a Fighting Irish fan. I mean, my grandfather and my father, both Roman Catholic, raised and all that jazz, right?
Yeah.
They only agreed on one thing, and that was Fighting Irish football on Saturdays. That's it.
What a tradition.
Right?
Yep.
And again, I mean, when people don't understand that type of passion and love that I have for the Fighting Irish, I don't care. I really don't, because I'm no longer a member of the Catholic Church. But I'm telling you, the Notre Dame victory march and our mother at the end of a game, that means stuff. That is special to me. It's just the same way as You'll Never Walk Alone means something to me because I'm a Liverpool fan as well, right?
Right.
So, that's where my love comes. It's not about all the noise that comes with the Dallas Cowboys. If I was to have control of the Dallas Cowboys, I'd let two media people into that place every day. Jane Slater and Mike Fisher. That's it. That's all. I don't need anybody else there. I don't need all the ESPN people there.
Right.
The NFL Network. I don't need you guys around me. There's no more tours while the players are there in the season.
Right.
There's no more tours.
Right.
And the players are what matter.
Yes. Yes. Without all the rest of the stuff, it's amazing how much it boils down to just the players. The players, without all this other stuff that they get today, social media, would arguably still be as important. They still have all their sponsorships, but they'd be left alone to focus on the product, the football, delivering that. And we'll wait and see, that as you said, as you were intimating before, the Dallas Cowboys are going to survive at least Jerry Jones. Maybe they'll survive the rest of them. Hopefully we don't have to wait that long to see what that's like.
Well, like I said earlier, come spring break week, which is also the beginning of free agency, Charlotte, stay in Dallas, and I'm sorry, you'll have to arrange their funerals, but if the accident happens, it happens. Okay? I mean, that's our one glaring hope, folks. Is a yacht accident in the Gulf of Mexico where Stephen and Jerry are on the boat. It's and that's what it comes down to.
I pictured them dressed as you've got Jerry dressed as Sheriff Buford T. Justice. He's wearing his hat. You've got Stephen as Junior, and he comes in, Daddy, the boat's sinking. Get the snorkels. The what?
Yeah. There you go. See, now this is how you solve the problems of the Dallas Cowboys. It's just a quick, easy boat accident.
And this is just an idea. It's a concept.
That's right.
Neither of us will be involved. It could happen. It may not.
No. Because of course, I am a former Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, and I was a scout sniper. But again, they're offshore. I'm not close enough to them.
Exactly. Too many waves.
Yeah. So no, I will not be held responsible for this accident. But really, I mean, that's sad to say stuff like that. But again, because the way that these two clowns act,
Mhm.
that's how people feel.
Yes. We take them as seriously as they take us.
Which is very, very little.
Yep.
And that really, really um, does bother me to no end. Again, because of the Tom Landrys, the Roger Staubachs, the Randy Whites, the Chuck Howleys, the Emerson Walls, Darren Woodson's. Again, the Great Wall of Dallas in the 1990s. Because without those five guys, Emmitt Smith doesn't become the NFL rushing leader.
Right.
Michael
right.
Irvin isn't who he is either, and neither was Troy Aikman.
And the standards set by all those great teams, they only seem super hard to follow because of the obstacles in the team's way. We'd be much closer to seeing them have
those two obstacles are named Jerry and Stephen Jones.
That's
and
right.
and until those two guys leave the football to real football people, because I know, Jerry, I know you played at the University of Arkansas and you won the national title in 1964 with Jimmy Johnson, but Stephen, you're a dumbass. You never won nothing.
Yeah, he's got less content in his head than a McGriddles with too much salt.
Yeah,
Jerry holds in his hand.
Yeah, and again, Charlotte does so much good in that community already.
Yeah.
She's a business leader in that community.
Mhm.
She understands the business. So again, you don't need Stephen to be there.
That's right.
So
You need
Jerry, write out Stephen from the will, okay? Write him out.
As we knew in November of 2024, as we really knew between the two of us, you need a strong hand of a woman to get things right.
Absolutely. That's another sad sight. January 20th, though, I still have my hopes and dreams are still alive, because that night, while that moron is at his inauguration and all that other nonsense, the Fighting Irish and Notre Dame are playing Ohio State.
You get that. I'm still hoping while that game's happening, there's a one-way ticket alien abduction that happens elsewhere, and they have room for like easily 50 other people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Today is actually former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien's 91st birthday up here, by the way.
Wow.
And that man who told President 43 to kiss my rear end about going into Iraq. He has also had some comments directed at 45, which you may want to look up on X there.
Indeed.
Jean Chrétien, he talked like this. He may not have talked all that great English, but damn, he was a good prime minister. So he turned 91 today. That's a
Wow.
Pretty astounding age for any Canadian former prime minister to reach. I think he becomes the oldest.
Oh.
So much like the man that we just buried this week was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Career.
Yeah. So, but again, folks, this has been the final word. My absolute final word on this is the Cowboys will always be my team. They will always be Eric's team. It doesn't matter what Stephen A. Smith says. It doesn't matter what all the haters say about us. We're going to remain Dallas Cowboys fans. And that is something that nobody can take away from us. I don't understand why they think that they need to try and take this away from us. It boggles my mind. Yeah, it really does. So Eric, what else are you doing these days?
I spend my daytime developing video games and things called serious games that are like visual simulations for training, anything from military to banking to utilities industry, all those things, um, and otherwise trying desperately to write my missives like you do, only longer, more obnoxious than you could ever write. Ha ha ha. That's a compliment, by the way. On my site, emsharf.com. But between those things, I keep myself creatively busy for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's your wife's birthday tomorrow.
It is, and she was so pleased that I had to squeeze her dinner with friends in before the podcast, which I said, I know I told you about this podcast before you told me about this party, right? She's like, I don't think so. I'm like, well, let's not argue about that and let's move on. So
Well, to your beautiful wife, I apologize. You have a very happy birthday, but I needed Eric for a little while. Okay.
I'll make sure she sees this bit.
All right, and that's going to be it for the final word this week. Everybody, take care.
Take care, my friend.